Welcome to The Hindu Editorial. My name is Ryan Pinto, and I'm going to discuss with you The Hindu Editorial of January 7th. So, the first editorial that we are going to discuss on is the issue of the Central Vista or the Parliament House that is considered to be a controversy. Some are saying this should not have been done during the time of COVID 19, but others are saying this has to be done so that India can claim its greatness and it can showcase its power and also its might in the cultural as well as in the international fora. So you can see on the left hand side of your screen, it is the old parliament that we have. It is the temple of democracy in India, Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and in the right side we have the new parliament, that's the Central Vista project. And in this new parliament, it not only includes the parliament, there are various other offices, the prime minister's residence, etc. So let's start with building by accord. Beyond judicial clearance, so we know the Parliament House recently, the Central Vista, has been given the go ahead by the judiciary. The Supreme Court has said that you can continue with the building of this parliament, and that is where the controversy has started. Central Vista should be able to achieve national consensus. So, what the writer is trying to say is not only judicial clearance, but Central Vista should also try to claim or take national consensus because many people are against the building. So the point people are against is not the building of the Parliament House or the Central Vista. It is building it in during the time of COVID-19, where our priority is the disease and the pandemic, but we are putting money in these things. Justice A.M. Khanvilkar and Dinesh Maheshwari found no infirmity in the approvals granted by the Central Vista Committee, Delhi Urban Art Commission, Heritage Conservation Committee, and other bodies, paving the way for a new parliament building and other edifices of government to come up. So, Justices A.M. Khanvilkar and Dinesh Maheshwari, they found no problems in what was being made. They found no issues in what was being made. The approval was given by the Central Vista Committee, Delhi Urban Art Commission, Heritage Conservation Committee, and other bodies. So, why should anyone have the problem? That is what Justice A.M. Khanvilkar and Dinesh Maheshwari said. So, they have the right to build the Parliament House or the Central Vista if so many bodies are giving the permission. But Justice Sanjeev Khanna, he said something. While agreeing with the majority opinion on the call for a bid, award, and the decision of the Urban Commission, dissented on the key issue of public participation. So it was given go ahead by the committee, by Delhi Urban Art Commission, Heritage Conservation Committee, and other bodies, but was the public taken into consideration, which vitiated the endorsement of land use change. While the final cost estimate is unclear, planned expenditure are in excess of 13,450 crore for, among other things, a new central secretariat, vice president's enclave, and prime minister's residence, besides 971 crore for new parliament. So, first of all, the okay is given by many committees and the bodies, but public is not taken into consideration. This is the time of COVID 19, and the expenditure is going to be around 13,450 crore. Just for the new parliament, it is going to be 971 crore. With the national consensus, such a colossal plan might be a crowning achievement. If it was taken, public participation was taken, and national consensus was taken, it would have been a very great achievement. 75th year of independence in 2022. What is germane to the question, however, is its appropriateness in a year of unprecedented disruption due to COVID-19. This is when an elected government must give its undivided attention to schemes for the common weal and not to be tempted into extravagant indulgence. So, what is the writer trying to say? During the time of COVID-19, the focus should be on health, focus should be on pandemic, not on extravagant means very expensive and very high expenditures. As Justice Khanna pointed out, public consultation in a democracy requires citizens to be able to assess the project's rationale, armed with information on the official reasoning and with sufficient time at their disposal. So, public consultation is needed. People will come to know why at this time the government is making this Central Vista project. People will know. People will also be if the reasons are very genuine. People will also support. It would be appropriate, therefore, for the center to attempt consensus building on Central Vista without showing undue anxiety and haste in taking up all planned structures together. The pandemic's course points to uncertainty on restoration of economic health and ameliorating the damage to large sectors of the economy, especially in services. So, focus needs to be on the pandemic. In the pandemic, there is the focus needs to be on in making better our economic health to solve the problems of the large sectors of economy that are destroyed because of the pandemic, and to build consensus if there is a necessity of making a Central Vista project. Prioritizing Central Vista can prove to be distraction from the task. So we have seen how much money the Central Vista needs, around 13,000 crores. The bodies have said yes, but the problem with Sanjeev Khanna in the Supreme Court, he is one of the Chief Justice, one of the justice judges, he said is public participation. Central Vista executives caprice and rule of law. Now Central Vista is faulting on another point, that is rule of law. Okay, so the constitution, where rule of law means everything which is done should be done according to the law. That is the meaning of rule of law. Currently we have the rule of law. Constitutional tradition requires a state's decision to be just, fair and reasonable and adhere to procedure. That is the meaning of rule of law. Means everything has to be just, fair and reasonable. These rulings invariably begin with a homage to the ideas of rule of law. So, the Supreme Court, as I have told you in the earlier editorial, they had said yes to the Central Vista project because they found that every committee has given a go ahead. Then why to stop this? But does it follow the rule of law? But the opening tributes are left by the wayside when it comes time for the court to apply those ideas to the case at hand. The invariable upshot, the executive government's caprice trumps due process. So the writer in this article says, for the Central Vista project, though the Supreme Court gave big um, importance to the rule of law, but it forgets the rule of law during this case. The judgment delivered on January 5th in Rajiv Suri versus Delhi Development Authority, in which 2 is to 1 majority of the court granted its imprimatur to the proposed redevelopment of the Central Vista in the national capital, fits the trend. So 2 is to 1, the case was won by the government or the Delhi Development Authority, which gave the go ahead to the Central Vista project. And we have seen Sanjeev Khanna was the person who did not give his assent. So three judges were sitting in this for this case, and one of them, Sanjeev Khanna, did not say yes to it. The other two did. It holds that, so what is the rule of law in relation with Central Vista? It holds that in a republic governed by the rule of law, the government action, however good, however laudable they might be, must stand the test of the Constitution. The early songs of praise to the high principles of democratic values are enfeebled by the court's refusal to acknowledge the existence of a right to public participation. Again, it focuses on public participation. The court talked about rule of law. The court, in every judge cases, before they start saying, before they give the judgment, they give priority to the rule of law. Everything they say good for the procedure, etc. But if everything is rule of law, etc., then during this project, why was public participation not taken into consideration, which ought to be as fundamental in a democracy, properly understood? What is more, a disavowment of basic environmental norms is accepted because, according to the court, the principle of sustainable development and precautionary principles need to be understood in a proper context. So the first issue is public participation was not there. Second is, in this case, in the Central Vista case, basic environmental norms were thrown out. Focus was not given to the environment because the court said in case of sustainable development, there needs to be, one needs to uh, keep in mind that development is also important, not only environment. And mostly courts then, when this principle is brought forward, then give more focus on development and throw away environment, one in which competing public interests must be harmonized and balanced. As we know too well, every public interest, every time the court uses the language of harmony and balance, development eclipses every other concern. So, mostly the courts, when they give judgments in case of development and the other things, development is given priority, other things like environment are thrown out. So, this is the second issue in the Central Vista. So, first issue is public participation, second is environmental norms were not given consideration. Let's continue. Delhi's Central Vista, originally conceived by Edwin Lutyens. So just remember, it was Edwin Lutyens. This is also called as Lutyens Delhi. Stretches from India Gate to Rashtrapati Bhavan. So you have the Rashtrapati Bhavan, you have the Central Secretariat, you have the Rajpath, and you have the India Gate. So you must have seen this during the Republic Day parade. And it includes all the offices, which are close by, close by, close by. From Parliament House to the secretariats on the north and the south block, but also a number of other important public structures, among others, National Archive of India, National Museum, National War Memorial. So it includes National Archive, National Museum, National War Memorial. Its open spaces, it includes open spaces, easy physical access that it affords to seat of power also mean it has served in many ways as a link between state and its people. So currently the Central Vista is including Rashtrapati Bhavan, Parliament House, offices, and if you go to Delhi and you visit this place in Central Secretariat, you will see all these are open to people. People can access this place, see this place, and see the seat of power. It shows democracy. In 2009, the Central Vista was, now this was by Lutyens, but now in 2009, Central Vista was reconsidered, important enough to be designated after extensive public consideration. So in 2009, Central Vista was not reconsidered, considered important enough, and it was given grade 1 heritage present. This meant that any development inside the area had to be regulated and controlled in a manner that would leave its grandeur unscathed, that is, untouched. But the proposal today, which portends enormous cost, is not a simple act of development within the boundaries of the area. So you must remember, Lutyens Delhi, this Central Vista was actually conceived by Lutyens, and it includes various offices. In 2009, it was given grade 1 heritage present, means it can't be, much development can't be done on this area. This is a big area. But now see, what is happening is the whole structure is being changed. Then why can't we speak to the public? Why can't public's participation be done? Why can't environment be taken care of? Instead, it seeks to remake the space. A new Parliament House will be erected next to the existing heritage building. It has been suggested the Central Hall, where Nehru had made tryst with destiny speech, where the constitution was adopted, would be converted into Museum of Democracy. A new secretariat and a new residence for the prime minister will be built, and a number of post independence buildings including national museum will be taken down. So the old parliament, as I had shown you in the initial first slide, the center place where our independence day speech was made by Jawaharlal Nehru, that will be turned into a museum. In this same place our constitution was adopted. A new secretariat will be built, a new prime minister's residence, a new national museum will be taken down. So, doesn't it need public's participation? Doesn't it need more deliberation, thinking? Petitions and claims. Petitions originally filed in the Delhi High Court and transferred later to the Supreme Court alleged government had failed to follow due process. So the petition says they did not follow the due process. Two claims stand out. First, that the state had sanctioned an alteration to the existing land use permitted under the law without sufficient public consultation. So the first problem here is land use permission was changed. So that needs public consultation. And second is the environment clearance. Second, that the environment clearance for the project is unreasoned and was in any event obtained by illegitimately carving the project into two. So, two problems in this Central Vista. First is land use change was done. Second is environment clearance. Justice A.M. Khanvilkar, that one, the person who, the judge who actually said yes, writing on behalf of himself, and Justice Dinesh Maheshwari, the second judge who was okay with it, holds that project required no special judicial scrutiny. According to the court, the petitioner's case was not predicated on the violation of any fundamental right, but only the rigors prescribed by statute. In this case, the Delhi Development Act 1957. That law, though, as Justice Sanjeev Khanna's dissenting opinion notes, does in fact mandate, among other things, the granting of an opportunity to the public to place on record its objection and for those objections to be considered by hearing the objectors. So, Justice A.M. Khanvilkar and Justice Dinesh Maheshwari, keeping the Delhi Development Act 1957, said it does not need judicial scrutiny. It did not need public participation. But in the same law, Delhi Development Act 1957, it is written that the public can give their objections and the objectors can be heard too. The majority rules that the law does not make personal hearings mandatory and therefore it was irrelevant whether sufficient time was granted or not. There are at least two problems with this finding. One, the court has consistently held in the past that arbitrary state action violates fundamental rights, in particular the equality clause of Article 14. So, we have seen the issue of public participation and environment. Now, where is the court going wrong? The court has taken the Delhi Development Act, which actually allows for public participation. Secondly, the court says that personal hearing is not mandatory in this. But the courts themselves earlier have said if the government is not acting according to the constitution, it means it violates fundamental rights according to Article 14. This would mean that the project such as this, where a transformational change is brought about to master plan framed under the 1957 Act, the public ought to have been accorded a sufficient chance to place on record all its objection and a sufficient chance to be heard personally on those complaints. Number two, any civic participation can be productive only if complete information is placed in the public domain. In this, the Board of Inquiry and Hearing, which was appointed to consider the objections raised on the change in the land use, recognized the merit in the objector's plea that the full details of the project was not made available. Secondly, so the first issue was that the government did their work arbitrarily without asking the public. Second issue was complete full details of the project was not given to the committee which was looking for the in the case. Moreover, it also recommends that impact assessment studies on traffic, environment, and heritage ought to be commissioned at the earliest. But despite these findings, Delhi Development Authority sanctioned the proposal. So there was no traffic, environment, and heritage impact assessment. So all these assessments are needed to know what will be the impact on the environment, on the traffic, and all the heritage around. But no such things was done. But as the dissenting judgment, so need for adequate disclosures. But as the dissenting judgment shows us, the most basic principles of procedural fairness, doctrines that flow from an array of constitutional promises, require the state to make adequate intelligible disclosures. So we know the disclosures was not done, proper information was not given. This is especially so in this case because, as Justice Khanna identifies, the project, when executed, will have permanent and irreversible consequences. So, we have seen what are the two main points in the Central Vista project. One is the clearance, public participation is not given. Second, the clearances are not proper. Environment is not taken into consideration. Heritage is not taken into consideration. There is no proper information. Delhi Development Act itself says that the objections can be brought and the objectors need to be listened to. But the two judges in the Supreme Court who were hearing the case did not find this. Sanjeev Khanna says it will have a irreversible permanent consequence. So we need to have the all the information and disclosures made done now. Environmental scrutiny. The nature of the project ought to have also led to a more careful scrutiny on the environmental clearance to it by the appraisal committee. Clearance had been sought not for the development of the Central Vista but only for the construction of the new parliament. So, environment scrutiny is needed. Clearance was sought but only for new parliament building, not for the whole Central Vista. This meant that application was considered simply as building and construction project rather than township and area development project, which would have enhanced the level of inspection. So the clearance is only for the building, not the whole Central Vista, but actually they are changing the whole Central Vista. These concerns over procedure and over the denial of adequate public participation might not strike us intuitively as matters of grave importance. But the rule of law must mean something. We must regard the basic goals of our constitutional tradition with respect. That tradition, more than anything else, requires decision made by state to be just, fair and reasonable, both in its substance and however tedious it might be, in its adherence to procedure. So procedure needs to be very important. If the procedure is not there, if normal public or if anyone else had to build such things, they would have gone through all environment, heritage, traffic impact assessment, proper procedures, rules were followed. But if the government is making anything, why the government does not need to follow all this? That is why it hurts the article of, or you can say, constitutional right of equality and rule of law. So you must understand all these issues which was there in the Central Vista project. The next issue is on the reservation. Reservation is considered to be one of the factors which is leading to divide in India today. Today also, if you see around, reservation is a very controversial point which divides India on the basis of reserved and the unreserved category. But what was the motive of reservation? Why did the reservation come? And what has reservation achieved, which we are going to see in the editorial. So we know the reservation was brought in, especially in Article 15 and Article 16 of the Constitution in fundamental rights, to undo the exploitation, or the, you can say, historic injustice, sorry, which was done since the time of the Rig Veda and the later Vedic period till the 20th century. So one section of the society, that is the untouchables and the Dalits and the lower caste, they were facing a lot of exploitation since the later Vedic period. And to undo this exploitation, reservation was brought in so that we could socially and educationally uplift, remember, socially and educationally uplift the lower caste. That was the motive of the reservation. We know the Varna system is in the Rig Veda, which is in the 10th Mandal, which says Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Shudra, and then later there was untouchability, etc., which was come up. Challenge of distributing opportunities better. The line between reserved and general is blurring, impacting reservation as an idea and as a practice. Until recently, reservation was at once our most divisive and most unifying public issue. So we have seen reservation is very, it is used for dividing also, and unifying. Unifying means unifies the community. It divided Indians into opposite camps of the reserved and the general category, with the latter dominating every aspect of public life with partial exception of electoral politics. So the general category actually is dominating each and every aspect of public life. If you notice, all the top positions and the top class, that's the money class, rich, are from the, you can say, general categories. The line separating reserved and general is becoming blurred now, while long simmering differences within each group can no longer be suppressed. So now what is currently happening is, reservation was used as a tool for fights for electoral politics, and we know the general category has a lot of resources in their hand and position and status, but the line now between reserved and general is becoming blur. How have these changes impacted reservation as an idea and as a practice? The answer to this question has many dimensions. So let's see. Only those relating to dominant ideologies and laws are considered below. Quota, ideology and merit. So let's see what is the ideology, what is the quota, and what is the merit. The ideologies that influence us most deeply shape our view of the world. Reservation, especially caste-based reservation, is a subject saturated in ideology. To eyes schooled in dominant upper caste ideology, quotas for them loom large and are seen as unambiguously bad and unjustified. So whatever ideology we have, however, how our mind is shaped, we start viewing things accordingly. Currently, we have a dominant upper caste ideology. That is why there is a feeling that reservation is bad and unjustified. Quotas were meant for, like the reservation for economically weaker section or for the wards of the employees of alumni or universities and college, are not even visible as quotas. So this is how you must understand our mindset is. It's a dominant upper caste ideology, because when we talk about reservation for the economically weaker section, there is also reservation. If you go to the schools and the colleges, universities, there is reservation for the alumni, for the employees. There is you must have heard of the management quota. No one talks about these, but only the caste ideology is considered. Are not even visible quotas, and even when they are, they don't look the same at all. Hence, here it is an interesting example. Some years ago, large public university where the writer that is the person who is writing this, has taught, formalized and standardized the uneven practices followed in the past by different departments. It created the largest quota they had by setting aside half of postgraduate seats for the students enrolled in its own undergraduate honors program. So, when you talk about quota, the writer writes a very nice example that in many of the universities, the for the graduation program or the post graduation program, priority is given to already to the students who had already taken admission earlier. This is also a type of quota. 50% and more seats were kept for the undergraduates for the MA and MSc programs, who are those in the BA and the BSc program. But no one talks about this as a quota. Quota means for us, what thing comes to our mind is the caste quota. This is because of the ideology that we have. It does not matter whether the name was deliberately chosen to ward off the stigma of reservation or whether it is a genuine case of ideological blindness. So, some calling it as a caste reservation. Was the name deliberately chosen to remove the the mindset of casteism, or was it just ideological blindness, because currently it is creating more casteism? What is interesting about the name is that it unintentionally brings together words such as quota and merit that are thought to be ideological opposites. The seemingly contradictory name reminds us that, in fact, all quotas are merit quotas since they apply merit based criteria of selection to the pool of eligible candidates. So, there is another context of merit quotas. Merit and quota are two actually different things. But if you notice, they are also a type of quotas. Those who are eligible, those who are getting in the criteria, they should be getting the job or the post or admission. Never mutually exclusive. Just as every quota today involves fierce competition among the eligible, every claim to merit is also built on structures of exclusionary access. So, another point of misinterpretation is quotas does not mean that you need to be a lower caste and you will get the admission or the job. You have to give the exam, you have to get inside the competition. So, if any student comes through a quota, there is a very wrong concept that they or he or she is not that eligible. Same way same way you can also consider that merit is also a type of quota, that if you are serving or if you are following or if you are having a few features, you can, that is marks in this case, you can get inside the government or the post. For example, expensive private schools or coaching institutes are effectively reserved for the rich, though they don't say it, but it is for the rich. So it is a type of quota. Then why people only attack, or why do we only have a, a problem with the caste quota? In the real world, what is called merit is always a mix of ability, effort, and social capital, with the latter playing a big role. So, the social capital does play a big role in examples like the coaching institutes and expensive private schools. So, is it available to the meritorious students with the which is having ability and effort? No, it is people who are having money can get in. The same is an issue with the other quotas also. The most recent judgment of the Supreme Court on reservation, Saurav Yadav versus State of UP and others, October 18, 2020, serves as a reminder that it is an increasingly complex intersectional issue because social identities are no longer singular. So, Supreme Court also has said that the reservation is a very complex issue. The judgment also upholds the principles stated and clarified in the wake of the so called Mandal judgment during the 19th, and that the unreserved category must be open to all, including those belonging to the reserved. Upper caste sentiment has been slow to accept the unreserved category cannot be treated as a quota reserved for the upper castes. So now Supreme Court had said that in the unreserved category, even the reserved students can apply. So that is why the upper castes feel that this unreserved is not a quota for them. Unreserved because the reserved are also coming. So if you notice, if you say for example 100 seats are there and there is a 30% quota, this is just an example. This 30 is reserved for the lower caste. Next 70 is actually for the upper caste. So this also can be taken as a quota, but upper caste is not taking it as a quota because lower caste can apply in this also. So you must understand various dimensions of quota. We have seen is merit itself. We have seen merit itself is a quota. We have seen having money and privilege itself makes a quota. Then why only target or why only think about caste based quota? It is because of the dominant ideology. It is because of the upper caste ideology. A side effect of the reservation caste forcing their way into the unreserved category has been grudging acknowledgement rather than recognizing excellence. Merit criteria actually perform a rationing function in our system. They offer a socially acceptable way to reconcile the large number of meritorious candidates with small number of places available. So as I have told you, merit is also a quota. Large number of meritorious candidates are there, small places available. So merit actually works like the rationing. So those who are better than the others, having more marks, more percentage, they can get in. True merit cannot be measured by examination alone. Is marks the only way that we should be seeing? As the late Arun Jaitley declared in Parliament when piloting the EWS reservation scheme. Turning point. The year 2021 happens to be centenary of the communal government order in Madras presidency, which introduced reservation based on castes and community. So where this reservation based on caste and all come? It was 1921, so 100 years now. Communal government of a government order of Madras presidency had given this. January 9th, second anniversary of EWS reservation law which was passed. So economically weaker section can also apply, which created the first explicit mechanism of reservation for the upper caste. Now the upper caste also has got reservation if you are a economically weaker section. And January 26 will mark 70th birthday of our constitution. So in all this, there are hints, or there are, you can say, points of reservation which is there. Acknowledging caste as a norm. So communal government order, which was colonial government's way of acknowledging inequalities of caste and finding politically experienced ways of dealing with it. The two unintended consequences of our constitution were, first, the birth of ideology of castelessness and the positioning of reservation as explicit exception to this implicit norm. So what we are seeing over here is the communal government order. The Madras presidency government first time which brought the caste quota reservation. It was a way of the colonial government. The British government wanted to divide India. It was a way of acknowledging inequalities of caste and finding a way to deal with it. Second, the two unintended consequences of our constitution were, first, the birth of the ideology of castelessness and the positioning of reservation as explicit exception to a norm. So remember, why did the constitution bring this quota? So that it can bring the ideology of castelessness, and it can uh, bring some reservation to the people. The second was the consequent rise of rhetoric of merit as caste based politics by other means. So the first point that you have to remember is quota or reservation that we are looking today is from the upper caste or the dominant caste ideology or mindset. Quota can be seen in merits, quota can be seen in, you can say, money for the privileged. Quota can be seen also in case of the alumni, that is already who have studied and they are getting admissions. So you must understand that this is how quota, not only in case of caste, there are quotas in other things also. Secondly, we have seen the quota was actually, when was this, the history of when this quotas and reservation came. It was in the communal government order by the Madras presidency. It is there in our constitution, and it was also like the last year, 9 January, EWS. All these are important areas or points in history where quota was given more reference, or it was made more stronger. So constitution, when it had came, there was a thought that it will lead to castelessness, and reservation will be an explicit exception. It will be an exception for 10 years, and then reservation will go out. But because of the EWS, we have come back to full circle, acknowledging caste as the norm despite continuing with the masquerade of castelessness. So this EWS actually brought the question of quota back again, and the point that we were planning to remove, one fine day we will be removing the quotas, again has gone back because new type of quotas are coming. So we are nowhere near a resolution, but at least upper caste politics is also in the open now. Most important, the ideological weaponizing of merit is being exposed for what it is. So the whole point of the constitution was to remove the caste and make it a casteless society. But by bringing this EWS, the upper caste or dominant caste mindset of quota or caste have been exposed. Merit, now we know exactly merit politics, or you can say merit, the use of merit is being exposed because merit is itself a quota, and we have seen how in various areas in the name of merit a lot of quotas are given. Hopefully this will enable us to tackle the shared challenge of finding better ways of distributing opportunities and measuring abilities. So that's all for the Hindu discussion. We have spoken exclusively on Central Vista, very important topic, and reservation. You can say on reservation we have got another side of the story. Remember, the art and science of asking questions is the source of all knowledge. Thank you.